Welcome to The Point. I've got another 26 minutes of very exciting stuff. This is number 8 in our series of the overview of Evolution is Impossible. And today I want to introduce you to the concept of irreducible complexity. That's a big word, isn't it? I'll say the word again, irreducible complexity. I'll just explain that. What it means is that something is designed, and the design is so complicated that it couldn't possibly have evolved. There are lots of examples of that, and we'll be talking about them. I'm just going to start with backtracking from last program, just to remind ourselves what Charles Darwin had to say about the human eye. So we can look at image 68A, which is Charles Darwin, and this is what he said about the human eye in his book, The Origin of Species. This is what Charles Darwin had to say, his words, not mine. To suppose that the eye, with all its inimitable contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances, for emitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberration, could have been formed by natural selection seems, I confess, absurd in the highest degree. Well, actually, I don't agree with much that Charles Darwin has to say, but I do agree with that it does seem absurd in the highest degree. Now, last time I actually went through the detailed anatomy of the human eye. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but I just want to click through quickly through the pictures. So we'll look at slide 69, which is to remind you that the human eye is like a camera, but much, much more sophisticated than any human-made camera. For one thing, the human eye scans at 3 million times a second, believe it or not. Totally reliant on the eye muscles. Let's look at the next picture, sorry, that's not number 70. I did explain how the light comes through the iris, which is contracts and expands according to how much light is around, and then goes through the lens, which also contracts and expands to accommodate the light, and then the light waves go to the retina, which are the special rods and cones at the back of the eye. Let's look at the next picture now. Just remind us, that's number 71. Just remind us that God has given our eyes special windscreen wipers, special fluid secreted from all over the eyelids, and as the eyes blink, we all blink every 8 seconds or something like that, the eyes are washed because you must keep that lens clear. And then let's look at the next picture, number 72. When we're looking at something like a bicycle, you can see that what actually happens is, because of the intricate mechanism of the eye, I'm not going to detail all in detail again, but there's an upside-down image of the bicycle on the back of the eye. And if we look at the next picture, and by the way, just to point out, the retina can distinguish about 10 million colors. Lost my space a bit now. The next picture actually is number... Oh, I seem to have lost a place here. Doesn't matter, we'll go straight on to that one. Okay. That's the human retina. When a doctor looks at the back of your eye, that's what he's looking at, a human retina. Basically what you're seeing there is blood vessels, because all of those special nerves have to have a special blood supply, which they certainly have. Let's move on to the next picture, and those are the specialized rods and cones. Oh, that picture actually is the visual cortex. There's someone looking at an eye, looking at a car. And the car, the image from the car is projected onto the back of the retina and converted by the rods and cones into specialized electrical impulses, which are taken to the visual cortex. Can we look at image number 75 of the rods and cones? That would be good, thank you. Those are specialized cells at the back of the eye, and they're specially designed to convert light into electrical activity. And the next picture is number 76, which shows retina cells, which shows how complicated the actual cells of the retina are. And then image 77 is a picture of the visual system. So we can look at well, in this case, when we go to see an optician, we look at an eye chart, and basically the whole thing is perfectly designed so we can actually see in stereoscopic vision in an eye chart. Right. And then in number 78, we see what a brain cell looks like. It's called a neuron. Number 78, a picture of a brain cell called a neuron, very highly specialized, and each neuron is connected to about 10,000 other neurons. And the visual cortex then communicates with the rest of the brain, so we all know exactly where we are in time and space. And then lastly, image 79, just a very quick overview of the human brain, which is the most complex computer in the universe. Far more complicated than anything that NASA can produce. I've done a separate program on the brain. But what I want to talk about now is how incredibly complicated it is, and how important it is to everything to function properly right from the word go. So what I've actually shown you very quickly there is a very simplified model of eyesight, which we all use at every moment of our waking lives, and we don't even think about it. Now let's look at what the evolutionists have to... I did start on this last program, but didn't really have time to talk about it very much. Image 79A is what the evolutionists teach in schools and university to our young children and to our young people about how eyes happened by chance. Now, I'm not going to go through the details, mainly because I think it's absolute rubbish. But you can see that they, starting at the top left there, they reckon that the probably help to actually see the image again. That's image number 79A, evolution of the eye. They reckon that the skin of the over the eye became transparent, and then there was a little dent. The skin sort of grew in, and then a lens developed, and then the retina developed, and a whole eye developed, and all by chance. That's the important thing, is it all happened by chance. So just to give you an overview of what the evolutionists actually believe happened, first of all, they say that the cornea, that's the skin over the eye, miraculously became transparent. There's no other transparent skin anywhere else in the body, but the evolutionists say, well, it just happened here. Okay, that's very convenient for them. So it permits the passage of light purely by chance. Now, I mean, you can think of our bodies in quite a bigger skin area. Of course, the skin over the eyes is actually a tiny percentage of the total area of the skin over our body. So how remarkable is that, purely by chance, that the transparent skin was in just the right place? It wouldn't be much good if our eyes were up here and the transparent skin was down on our heels, would it? Anyway, they also say that the highly sophisticated rods and cones, those specialized cells that develop within the retinas of the eyes, they all happened by chance and could amazingly convert light into electrical energy, which could then travel along these self-generating nerves, which also happened by chance, to the brain, which also happened by chance, and the brain could also understand all these images, could communicate with other parts of the brain, and so that the human, in our case, or the reptile, or the bird, or the fish, or whatever it is, knows exactly where they are in time and space because they connect it all up with their hearing, their feeling, their touch, their taste, with their 5 physical senses, and know where they are. And they say this all happened by chance. Do you know what? I think it's rubbish. I think it's absolute garbage, but there we go. You can make up your own mind, but the fact that we have stereoscopic vision, I think, is the most extraordinary, miraculous event, one of the many miraculous events in our human body. Now, the evolutionists like to go on to say the self-generating higher cortical functions, that's the brain, the top part of the brain, thought and subconscious awareness then influences the other cortical thoughts and movements, both voluntary and involuntary, of the whole body. You see, the thing is that we rely on our eyesight, on our hearing, our touch, and our taste, and our smell to position ourselves in whether we're sitting or standing or walking or lying, just to position our bodies in the right position. It all happens, and they say it all magically happened by chance. I don't believe a word of it. I think it happened because a super intelligence called Jesus Christ designed it that way. So the whole brain is what they tell us. This highly developed computer system, self-generated, independently, simultaneously, and perfect at the very first attempt. And they go on to talk about this chain of spontaneous and totally arbitrary events which all occurred purely by chance, but simultaneously. That's the point. So each cell in the human body is vitally dependent on other cells to survive. But according to evolution, this perfectly structured, independent system all evolved simultaneously, perfectly functional and integrated, and purely by chance. So let's look now at interdependent systems. This is leading on to what I want to get onto, which is irreducible complexity. I want you to look at image number 79B, which is interdependent systems. You can see a whole lot of wheels and cogs and things there. And you can see, or you can imagine, that if any one of those cogs stops turning, it's going to stop all the other ones turning. Put it another way, any one cog is dependent on the turning of all the other cogs, because these cogs are all interdependent. One wheel turns because all the other wheels turn. But if we jam one wheel, then none of the wheels will turn because it'll all lock up. I hope you can understand. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. I'm not trying to confuse you with physics or anatomy, physiology or biochemistry. I'm trying to give you the message that evolution is impossible in simple terms. Let's look at the next image, which is 79C, which is an image of an aeroplane. Not all viewers, but a lot of viewers will have flown on an aeroplane. Now, there is a perfect example of complexity, which is so sophisticated that if any one part of the aeroplane didn't work properly, it would crash. If the navigation system didn't work properly, it would crash. If the wing flaps didn't work properly, it would crash. If the well, I'm not going to go on talking about airplanes. I actually don't know a great deal about airplanes, but you get my point, is that for an airplane to fly, an awful lot of different functions have to happen all at the same time, perfectly, all working together, so that the airplane can fly. That's called irreducible complexity. Now, just to use a plane as an example, I know nobody is suggesting that planes evolved in the primordial slime, but the thing is that if a plane did evolve in the primordial slime, it's no good having a bit of a wing and a bit of a body, and then later on a bit of an engine and a bit of a radar system and a little bit of a pilot and all the rest of it. No, because it's got to fly, and it's got to fly first time, otherwise it will crash. That's my point. It's called irreducible complexity. So now that taking this idea of the irreducible complexity, let's look at image 79D, which is a brain cell. Now, there's a brain cell. They are really complicated cells, but the whole point is that they need oxygen. You probably know that if your brain doesn't receive oxygen for just a few seconds, you'll be unconscious. For various reasons. Maybe somebody has an abnormal heart rhythm, say. Happens quite a lot in medicine. The brain cell doesn't get enough oxygen for about 30 seconds, and the next thing that happens is that the person faints. Now, that's a very good thing to do, because that means that the person falls flat, which means that the head and the brain are now in a horizontal position, which is the best position to be in order to get blood from the heart. Because you've got to remember that most of us, our brains are 18 inches higher than our hearts. But here is my point, is that the brain needs oxygen to survive for more than a few seconds. If the brain is deprived of oxygen for 4 minutes, that brain cell will die. There's no question about it. If you have a cardiac arrest and the brain dies, the brain is deprived of oxygen for 4 minutes, the brain is dead. The whole body is dead. So moving on, if we can look at image 79E, we're talking about a really complicated respiratory system. I'm not going to talk a great deal about respiratory systems. You might be interested to know that the surface of the area of your alveoli, that's the little gas cells in your lungs, are about the same size as 2 tennis courts. But there's an extraordinarily complex activity going on to get oxygen into the blood circulation, which is our next picture, image 79F. A whole circulatory system, which I spent a whole program talking about, is itself really complicated. So what I've talked here is the brain and the heart and the lungs are all totally interdependent. The lungs and the heart can't function without the brain telling it what to do, and the brain needs oxygen and can't survive unless the heart and the lungs are working properly. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. This is called irreducible complexity. Let's now move to what the evolutionists teach us about all this. Again, this is the evolutionist speaking. During the supposed millions of years required for the evolutionary processes to occur, there was no room for error at all, or the brain cells would die. However, according to evolution, this was no problem at all because the circulatory systems and the respiratory systems all spontaneously self-generated by chance at exactly the same time, as well as all the physical structures to support these complex systems. Basically, they were saying it's not just chance, it's super chance. You've got a super chance eye all developing by chance. You've got a brain simultaneously developing by chance, which communicate by chance with the eye. You've got a respiratory system and a circulatory system and a skeletal system and all the other systems all developing by chance. Otherwise, the eye is useless. So I'm hoping that you'll see now that the evolutionists do have a very real problem with this irreducible complexity. Image 79G is a close-up of the gas cells called alveoli in the lungs. And those are really complicated. They're not simple at all. In fact, if it wasn't for a special, they should collapse. But God has actually placed in the alveoli a special liquid, a surfactant it's called, to stop the surface tension of the alveoli collapsing the lungs, which of course would mean the lungs wouldn't work. Anyway, to ensure adequate oxygen supply to the brain cells, there was, according to the evolutionists, spontaneous generation of the alveoli, that's the gas cells, lungs, bronchial tubes, trachea, heart, blood vessels, capillaries, the blood-oxygen brain barrier, the specialized hemoglobin to carry the oxygen, and the blood itself. According to evolution, all of these structures and systems all developed by chance, perfectly integrated simultaneously, and all working perfectly first time. There is absolutely no room at all for error. It's no good having a circulatory system or a respiratory system that sort of works, because if any sort of works, then the brain will be dead. You'll be unconscious in 30 seconds, and 4 minutes later, you'll be dead. It's all got to happen straight away, right, first time. It is actually stretching, in my view, this whole concept of evolution to ridiculous extremes, because there is zero tolerance for error. You cannot have an eye evolving, as they like to describe it, over however many years they like to describe an eye evolving, because until the eye's evolved, the creature, whatever it is, a reptile, a bird, or whatever it is, it can't see. If you can't see, you're out in out in the wild and you cannot see, guess what? You actually are at a serious disadvantage if you can't see. Maybe sometimes in the countryside you may have seen little rabbits who can't see because of a nasty disease called myxomatosis. And they're very sad little creatures. And of course what happens is the predators come and basically kill them. Well, that's the same as would happen in a situation where our eye is evolving. I'm sorry to be horrid about rabbits, but you know what evolutionists want us to believe is just simply ridiculous. So I want to introduce you now to this irreducible complexity, which is image 80A. And I've shown you something very simple, which is a mousetrap. I don't know if we can see that image, number 80A, of a mousetrap. Well, a mousetrap is basically a simple piece of wood, and it's got a spring on it, and a piece of cheese, and a trap. There we go. Now, that is a little machine, a machine designed to catch mice. We don't need to go into details of it. I expect you've seen, even if you haven't had one in your house, you know what I'm talking about, a way of catching mice by using a piece of cheese. Now, that is a little machine. If any part is not working, if the lever's not working, if the springs are not working, if there's no bait or anything else, it simply doesn't work and doesn't catch mice. Well, it's the same. It's called irreducible complexity. So coming back to the human body, the oxygen necessary for the brain is absolutely vital and must be right first time. Otherwise, the brain cells will die almost immediately. All of the systems involved with eyesight, they must, if they're going to evolve, they must evolve perfectly first time. Otherwise, no eyesight would be possible and the life form would be blind. Let's look at the next picture, which is 80B, a picture of three fishes. Can you imagine what life would be like for the little goldfish on the left if it was blind? It wouldn't actually be able to evolve very fast, I don't think, because all the other fishes would be predators to the poor little goldfish. I'm not trying to be horrid, but I'm just trying to be real now. How long do you think a blind species would last, taking Charles Darwin's survival of the fittest into account? Let's now look at reproductive systems. Here's image 80C, which is the fertilization of an egg in the human. Again, we've got this whole problem of irreducible complexity. Unless the reproductive systems of males and females of all living species, that's animals, birds, fish, insects, and humans, are all evolved correctly with perfect recognition of their own life forms and incidentally rejection of other life forms, reproduction is impossible. In other words, it's all very well evolving an animal, but the animal, and unless it's going to be extinct almost immediately, must have a perfectly developed reproductive system in place. It can't evolve over hundreds or millions of years. It's got to evolve straight away. Otherwise, that's the end of the species. Now, evolution teaches that all anatomical, physiological, biochemical systems necessary for life, all spontaneously generated by chance, all perfectly functional, perfectly independent, and all by chance. And all the oxygen necessary for the survival of all animal life spontaneously arose by chance. Let's just look at the last picture, image 80D. Another example of irreducible complexity. You see the trees produce the trees produce oxygen, which is necessary for humans and frogs and, well, all animals, all birds, all living organisms require oxygen. Now, humans and frogs and birds and everything else, one of the byproducts that they give off is a toxic gas called carbon dioxide. But of course, the trees absolutely love carbon dioxide. Using sunlight and water, they convert carbon dioxide and water into food, known as starch, and oxygen. So it's a symbiotic process. And it's another example of irreducible complexity. So I hope you're getting the idea, is that life is not simple. Here we have a simple example of trees and plants and flowers and all animal and bird life totally interdependent. It's no good having the trees without the animals and the plants, and it's no good having the plants without the trees. So next time we'll be looking at photosynthesis. If you're enjoying these programs, do write to us at info@revelationtv.com. There's a lot more information on my website, which is freechristianteaching.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and join us again soon. God bless you. Bye now.